Good day, everyone. This is Group 6 in the subject of HIS, or Health Information System. My group and I will be talking about the topic of ethics, privacy, and security. The members of said group is me, James David Javier, Joan Repollo, Julianne Samonte, and Kristine Andrea Sendico. Now, let us begin. Ethics in Health Informatics. Information systems store patient records that can be retrieved when needed. These records assist in the dispensation of health care and other supplementary services, which are part of health informatics. Health informatics is guided by health information ethics, defined as the application of the principles of ethics in the domain of health informatics. The three main aspects of information ethics are general, informatics, and software ethics. General ethics. In public health, general ethics guide the reasoning and decision making of all people and organizations involved in healthcare. Two of the ethical principles a health professional must uphold are autonomy and beneficence and non-maleficence. Autonomy. Autonomy is defined as the idea of either allowing individuals to make their own decisions in response to a particular social context, or being free from external influence or control. Electronic health records, or EHR, must maintain respect for patient autonomy, and this entails certain restrictions about the access, content, and ownership of records. Beneficence and non-beneficence. These two principles are respectively defined as do good and do no harm. In health informatics, beneficence relates most significantly with the usage of stored data in the EHR system, and non-maleficence with how the stored data is protected.
Informatics ethics. It is about the ethical behavior expected from an individual assigned to handle information as prescribed by the International Medical Informatics Association. It has 7 principles, and one of them is principle of information privacy and disposition. Everyone has the fundamental right to privacy. Every individual should ensure that he or she has control over the collection, access, manipulation, and disposition of data about himself or herself. 2. Principle of openness. The control measures of particular data should be disclosed to the concerned individual in an appropriate and timely fashion. 3. Principle of security. Legitimately collected data should be protected through all appropriate measures against access, use, modification or communication, manipulation, and unauthorized destruction. 4. Principle of access. Authorized individuals should be given access to electronic health records and the right to correct the data with respect to their completeness, accuracy, and relevance. 5. Principle of legitimate infringement. The right to privacy and control over personal data should be conditioned by the appropriate, legitimate, and relevant data requirement of a democratic society and by the equal rights of others. 6. Principle of the least intrusive alternative. Any infringement of privacy rights should occur in the least intrusive manner and with the least amount of interference with the rights of the affected parties. 7. Principle of accountability. Any infringement must be justified to the concerned individuals in a timely and appropriate fashion. Here, we have software ethics. It is where health informatics ethics relies their information, and it is also used as the storage and where the information is being processed. It is the ethical duties and responsibility of software developers to the stakeholders such as society, institution, employees, and the profession.
So now we're going to talk about privacy, confidentiality, and security. So let us define first privacy and confidentiality. So privacy generally applies to individuals and their aversion to eavesdropping, whereas confidentiality is more closely related to unintended disclosure of information. So there are numerous significant ways or reasons to protect privacy and confidentiality. First, privacy and confidentiality are widely regarded as rights of all people which merit respect without the need to be earned, argued, or defended. Protection of these rights is ultimately advantageous for both individuals and the society. So according to the USA Department of Health and Human Services, poor privacy and security practices heighten the vulnerability of patient information and increase the risk of successful cyber attacks. So we have different levels of security in hospital information system. So we have safeguards. So safeguards are solutions and tools which may be utilized to implement security policies at different levels of health organizations. It is important to note that the types of safeguards may be prescribed or restricted by laws. So we have three levels of safeguards, three types. We have the administrative level, which may be implemented by the management as organization-wide policies and procedures. We also have the physical level, where mechanisms can be put in place to protect equipment, systems, and locations. Lastly, the technical level, where automated processes to protect the software and database access and control can be implemented. So we also have here the important consideration, which is the cost-benefit principle. So if it is not cost-effective for an institution to avail of an expensive technology to mitigate a risk to electronic health information, an alternative is to require the staff to follow a new administrative procedure that equally reduces that risk. So we have here the table for the safeguards for HIS. So the National Research Council emphasizes that technological security tools are essential components of modern distributed healthcare information systems and that they serve five key functions. So we have the availability, accountability, perimeter identification, controlling access, and comprehensibility and control. In availability, ensuring that accurate and up-to-date information is available when needed at appropriate places. Accountability helps to ensure that healthcare providers are responsible for their access and use of information based on legitimate need and right to know. Perimeter identification, knowing and controlling the boundaries of trusted access to the information system, both physically and logically. Controlling access is enabling access for healthcare providers only to information essential to the performance of their jobs and limiting the real or perceived temptation to access information beyond a legitimate need. Lastly, the comprehensibility and control, where ensuring that record owners, data stewards, and patients understand and have effective control over appropriate aspects of information privacy and access.
Next is the levels of security in the laboratory information system. So the laboratory information system is referred as a computer-based or technology-based information management system created specifically for laboratories. It is utilized to support workflows in the laboratory as well as the repository to store any data and information while supporting the laboratory mission, wherein the goal is to deliver correct and complete information to laboratory staff, managers, and customers as efficiently as possible. Under this is we have the key steps in laboratory information flow, or the workflow for a hospital patient. So the first one is the register patient. It includes the patient's demographic information, such as name, sex, age, location, ID number, and such. These information must be affixed to the laboratory information system before ordering the tests. The system usually obtains these data from the hospital registration system upon admission. So it means that the information or the patient's information and data is actually obtained from the hospital registration system and then transferred or forwarded to the LIS or the laboratory information system to further process the tests. Next is we have the order tests, considering medical physicians have the upper hand on knowing the appropriate or accurate tests that is needed to be done. It is a necessity for the attending physician to have the tests ordered. So these orders are transcribed into the CIS or the clinical information system and sent automatically to the laboratory information system. Now, the laboratory information system is actually integrated or connected with the clinical information system. The clinical information system's application is to extract data from a patient information database and forwards it to the laboratory information system to process the given data. Next is we have collect sample. So upon the collection of samples, the LIS is liable in providing an organized list of all patients that is subjected for a specific test. So the laboratory information system prints a list with the appropriate number of sample barcode labels of patients who have to be drawn. Now, those barcodes, it is comprised of the patient's ID, sample contained, and the laboratory workstation that is needed to be applied on that specific test, which are all sorted to attain or maintain an efficient process. Next is we have the received sample. So for under received sample, it is where the updating of status in the LIS from collected to received. So the need to update is very important to avoid any confusions or duplications upon processing the test. That is why the status of the progress should be updated at all times. So the update is done by scanning of the barcode of the sample's barcode ID into the laboratory information system. So that is one purpose of the barcode ID. It is for any updates that is needed to be done um, along the process. So next is the LIS then transmits the test order to the analyzer that will perform the required test. So upon receiving, it is already expected to run or process the received sample under the next step, which is why it is a need to transmit the received sample to the analyzer. Next is we have the run sample. So upon entering this step, it is where the samples are already processed. So it is where the sample is loaded to the analyzer and the barcode is read. So under this step, this is where the reliability and accuracy of the laboratory information system is seen because upon running the sample there is no need to provide a work list on which type of test to perform per samples because with the laboratory information system, the analyzer already knows what test to perform. However, there are still circumstances where running of the sample can be done manually. Now, if the sample is run manually, it is a need to provide work list from the system. Next is we have review results. This is the production of the results by the analyzer and sends it to the LIS. Until it is not yet released for general viewing, the only personnel that can view the results are the assigned technologists. So in this step, the laboratory information system has the capacity to flag certain results. Now, by flag, it means that there are skeptical or critical values or any suspicious values that could negatively interpret the result. Now, this capability of the system can help and assist technologists to easily detect possible discrepancy upon reviewing the results and to repeat or further evaluate possible critical values that have been seen. Next is we have the release results. After reviewing and evaluating the results, the medical technologist is liable in releasing the results. So the system is programmed to automatically review and release the results. It means that it will actually, in the releasing of results, it can actually benefit the technologists because it will reduce the number of tests that is needed or that is required to be processed by the medical technologist. Now, with this kind of approach under releasing of results, it prevents any duplication of processed sample. And then it is automatically transmitted to the clinical information system upon release. Under the report results, there is viewing of results on the clinical information system. Now, it is said that the results are automatically transmitted to the clinical information system upon release. It is because the viewing of the results occurs on the CIS. Now, as you can recall on the order tests, the patient's information is actually acquired from the clinical information can actually be acquired in the clinical information system by the physician, and it is being transcribed or transferred to the LIS or the laboratory information system. Now, this is where the physicians can observe and interpret the results for certain diagnosis in the clinical information system. Next is reports can also be printed when needed. Next is for the 3 types of safeguards for LIS. From the previous reporter, she have discussed types of safeguards. However, it is for the HIS or the Hospital Information System. In this report, it is about the types of safeguards from the Laboratory Information System. The first one is the administrative safeguards. Now, this focuses on the administrative actions, policies, procedures to manage the selection, development, implementation, growth, maintenance of security measures. So in shorter explanation, it focuses on security measures to further develop the system. It includes continuous training for the users of the LIS. Of course, we need to make sure that all users, personnel, and other managers of the system has undergo training or has continuous training in order for them to be acquitted on being a qualified users of the system. Next is we have periodic review of standards used to identify results that should be flagged, review of authorization and supervision policies, strict implementation of the rules and regulations for testing procedures, release and dissemination on the proper disposal of laboratory specimen, and the proper use of laboratory workstations. And also, it requires appropriate disciplinary measures as needed. Next is we have the physical safeguards. So it focuses on the physical measures, policies, and procedures to protect a covered entity's electronic information systems and related buildings and equipment from natural and environmental hazards and other unauthorized intrusions. So it includes ensuring the periodic maintenance, which means what do you mean by periodic maintenance is that it requires tasks or activities, courses of actions in maintaining a performance of an equipment at a given set time of intervals. So this ensures that every laboratory equipment can be appropriately and accurately used or utilized, and it could function properly and accurately. Next, having security measures for laboratory access, maintenance of controlled temperature both for equipment and specimen, presence of contingency, operations plan. It means that there are set of plans, operations plans, if there are possible incidents in the system. Next is the use of personal laboratory safety equipment. Next is for the technical safeguards. So under this, it focuses on the technology and the policy procedures for its use that protects electronic protected health information and control access to it. It includes the availability of automated identity confirmation procedures for users requesting access. It means that the system should have the ability to confirm identities who will obtain a specific or a certain information under the system. So next is regular updating of passwords, requiring distinct authorization based on user level. This refers to the medical officials or workers based on their level of course, their authorization in a particular information in the system is based on their level. Next is the capacity of the unit to automatically log off after a period of inactivity. So taking into consideration that in a healthcare workplace, it is expected to be busy at all times, which is why the capacity of having a unit that can automatically log off due to inactivity is very important to avoid any wrongful act due to negligence. Next is we have the Philippine Data Privacy Act of 2012. Its aim is to protect the fundamental human right of privacy of communication while ensuring free flow of information to promote innovation and growth. Now, taking into consideration that in a hospital facility, heavy information are held in this specific workplace. This is why confidentiality should not be comprised in this type of work. It seeks to protect all forms of information, be it private, personal, or sensitive. The Act upholds that consent. Its major characteristic of the Act must be documented and given prior to the collection of all forms of personal data, which should be used for a legitimate purpose. Next is the Data Privacy Act of 2012 describes sensitive personal information of the following. It includes the individual's race, ethnic origin, marital status, age, color, and religious, philosophical, and political affiliations. Also, individual's health status, education status, genetic or sexual life of a person, or to any proceeding or any offense committed or allegedly committed, and also the individual's social security number. Now, this information are labeled as sensitive information by the Act, which is why compromising this data or illegally obtaining this data will definitely perceived as a violation under the Data Privacy Act of 2012. Um, However, there are exceptions in obtaining those sensitive personal information. So the exceptions are consent of the data subject. It means that an individual can have the legal access or authorization to a specific data or information if he or she has a consent to the rightful owner or to the official personnel of that data. Next is pursuant to law that does not require consent. It means in accordance to the law. It means it can be legal. It can be obtained if it is legal. Next is for the protection for the life and health of a person. It means such information can be obtained if it can be subjected for protection for the life and health of an individual. Next, for medical treatments and protecting the lawful rights of data subjects in court proceeding, legal proceeding, or regulation. Next is the penalties. So any series of acts shall make the person subjected to imprisonment ranging from 3 years to 6 years, and also a fine not less than 1 million pesos but not more than 5 million pesos. So these penalties can be subjected to a person if the violations the individual did were unauthorized processing, which means the person has no right to process the data. Next is processing for an authorized purpose. This means that yes, the person has the authority to process the data. However, he or she is doing it for illegal purpose. Next is negligent access. If the person who is liable in protecting these data was not able to properly manage and secure the information. Next is improper disposal, getting rid of important data and information without any consent or authorization by the legal owner or the legal holder of the information. Lastly is the malicious disclosure. It is when an information about an individual, even if it is untrue or true, is disclosed or publicly spread illegally in bad faith or with malice. So with these violations, if a person has ever violated any in any circumstances under the Philippine Data Privacy Act of 2012, of course he or she will be subjected to the penalties. So that is all for our report. Thank you, everyone.